The United Nations. How and why was the UN founded? UN is an international organization whose aims are facilitating collaboration in international law, international security, economic development, social progress, human rights, and of course, achievement of world peace. The UN was founded in 1945 after the Second World War to stop wars between countries. It contains multiple additional organizations to carry out its mission. The UN's objectives or goals: to maintain peace and security at international level, to develop friendly relations among different nations, to implement international cooperation in the economic, social, cultural, and humanitarian fields, to promote respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms, such as freedom of speech, and at last to establish a center where member states can work together to achieve these common objectives. The development in the number of members. In 1945, after the end of the Second World War, the members of the United Nations numbered 51. But over the next 5 decades, an increasing number of nations entered as members and gained their independence and freedom of action. That was done through the peace treaties, or decolonization or disintegration of large political entities, such as the former Soviet Union and Yugoslavia. The member countries' obligations is to be a member in the organization. Every nation has to be in accordance with the Charter of the United Nations. All the countries that belong to the UN pays for its budget.
Okay, the UN's location and working language. The headquarters of the UN is located in New York since 1947, but UN also has other important offices elsewhere as well, in Geneva, Switzerland, Vienna, Austria, Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, Nairobi, Kenya, Bangkok, Thailand, Amman, Jordan, and Santiago, Chile. But there are also many UN information centers in the capital cities of many countries. The official languages of UN are Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. The General Assembly is in UN's main deliberative body. On the first day of its sessions the General Assembly elects a president for a term of 1 year, chosen from among representatives of member states, and each time from a different geographical region. Meetings of the General Assembly also offer member states the opportunity to hold informal discussions and neutral ground. Most of the work of the Assembly takes place in 6 main committees and specialized in different areas and open to the participation of all member states. At the end of the sessions, each committee submits its report and proposed resolutions. Member states are not compelled to implement resolutions adopted by the General Assembly. Therefore, they carry more weight with governments if they are adopted unanimously. The Economic and Social Council plays a central role in reviewing the economic and social activities of the UN. Its bodies dealing with operational programs and specialized agencies which together from the UN system. Throughout the year, the work of the Economic and Social Council is carried out by a large number of subsidiary organs which report to it. The Economic and the Social Council is the link between the UN and over 2,500 international non-government organizations. The International Court of Justice is the tribunal of the United States. It is placed in Hague, Netherlands. The court consists of 15 judges, all of different nationalities, chosen for their qualifications. They do not represent their governments, but are independent magistrates. They are elected by the General Assembly and the Security Council to serve for 9 years. The power balance between the member states. Each member state has one vote at the UN, no matter what its size and political power. He is the Secretary General. He is the highest official of the organization and is its personification in the eyes of the world. He is the head of all UN civil servants and disposes of a sizable staff to assist him in managing this great institution. Indeed, the Secretary General has ultimate responsibility for all the activities of the UN and at the same time is the principal partner in discussion with the government of member states. He is appointed by the General Assembly on the recommendation of the Security Council for a term of 5 years. He must be a diplomat of outstanding qualities, a personality of a great sensitivity to global problems, vision, determination and faith in the ideals ensuring in the Charter of the United Nations. He also must be a good manager.
Yes, the UN system. The United Nations system is a large network of organizations, and they are called specialized agencies. The activities of these agencies are very varied, and they have their own field of competence. What they are trying to do is to establish international standards in all the current developing countries. All the different agencies vary in size. Some have few hundred workers, others a few thousand, but they are all linked to the UN. If you don't know the structure of the UN system, it can be very complex, so it is easy to get lost. The UN's effort to maintain peace. Before the Cold War was over, the UN was often paralyzed by a country's hostilities. It was because of the conflict between the Western nations and Soviet Union. Most initiatives were blocked by a veto cast by one or other of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, but nevertheless it was possible for some of the initiative to get through. For example, the UN ended the conflict between Iraq and Iran, and of course the Cuba crisis. After the Cold War, it became easier to make agreements between the world nations. The UN's mission is to bring an end to all the conflicts all around the world and thereby restore world peace. Humanitarian assistance. The UN plays a very important role in providing humanitarian assistance. They have created peacekeeping programs so they can help refugees. It is the responsibility of the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. It was established in Geneva 1951. They are currently assisting 34.4 million people around the world. The role of the agency is to protect the refugees against violence. They provide with shelters and medical care. If it is not possible to help the refugees create a peaceful environment in their home countries, then the High Commissioner's office helps the refugees to settle in the country where they sought asylum. Economic and social development. Peacekeeping and refugees programs are some of the widely known activities known in the UN, but it is also important to promote economic development and social progress. They also need to protect the global environment and health. These programs represent 80% of the UN activities. The programs have had a huge impact on many people, and that's why it is important to promote these programs more and more each and every year. The UN does not act alone. Some of the specialized agencies work together in a common coordinated effort. For example, the FAO works to improve the production and distribution of food. The WHO works with health. UNESCO works with education for all. UNICEF improves the life of children and mothers all around the world. All these programs are funded through voluntary contributions by member states to promote economic and social development.
The UN has to protect the basic human rights and equal rights between men and women. The UN assigns this top priority. In 1948, where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by the UN. The declaration states all human beings are born free, equal in dignity and in rights, without restrictions of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinions, nations or social origin, property, birth or other status. Only 145 of the total 192 UN members have signed this. This Commission of Human Rights was established in 1946. They met every year for 6 weeks in Geneva, which is highly publicized. Here, they review complaints and call for investigations if the case is serious. In 1998, the UN set up the first permanent international criminal court who prosecutes international crimes. How much does the UN cost? Now and then, the US budget is characterized as a bottomless pit, but the amount of money given to the UN is not a bottomless pit. They spend $1.3 billion on their core functions. To put this in perspective, the UN's budget would only cover about 4% of New York City's budget. But what does it cost to keep the peace? In 2008, the UN approximately used $8.7 billion. That's less than 1.3% of the world's military spendings. In 1996, the world's government spent about $797 billion on military purpose. That's about $135 per individual. But the UN and its agencies, funds and programs have $4.8 billion a year to spend on the world's poorest countries. That's about 80 cents per individual. Who's paying? All the members of the UN pays. The share of each country is determined by their ability to pay and their income. 9 countries take over 75% of the budget. The US takes 22%, Japan takes 17.6%, Germany 8.5%, UK 6.6%, France 6.3%, Italy 5.8%, Canada 2.9%, Spain 2.9% also, China 2.6%, and Mexico 2.1%. UN's future. The combination of late payments and trouble with the interim governments working together have made it difficult for the UN over the years. But their major goals for 2015 is eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, achieve universal primality education, promote equality between men and women, reduce child mortality, improve maternal health, and combat with HIV/AIDS, malaria and other major diseases.